Hello, Assalamu alaikum, and welcome back to White and Gray to my channel. And again, we are discussing about the Ll.B. Part 1 and Book 4. The topic we are discussing today is the social contract theory, and it is basically from the introduction to the philosophy of law. Social contract is the reason why I choose this topic on the first note is that it is one of the important topic which I consider to start it with, because it is consistently coming from 2019 onwards. Like every year, either a complete question or some part of the question has been coming from this specific topic. Although the topic is indescriptive, is explained here, but yes, it depends on the question how the examiner is asking. We have to elaborate up to that aspect only. And yes, the topic completely has approximately 15 headings, and I will go one by one, step by step, to understand what exactly the topic is explaining to us. So the first heading itself is introduction, and अगर हम इस पेज पे देखें, there are 5 headings: introduction, interpretation of the term social contract, definition of social contract, association and exposition of the theory, main exponents of the theory. So if we go through with the definition, just understanding one thing, that social contract is as old as the philosophy. It is basically the view that a person, moral and the political obligations are depending upon the contract or the agreement to form the society in which they live. So where you live, where you are living, every country has their own laws and rules which you are adopting, and they give that definition correlating with the social contract. Like each society member should has to understand the rights and obligations to live in a specific area, and if he is doing any evil doing, he should be considered that it's injustice of punishing him, but it's basically to discipline the society, that if you're doing something wrongdoing, you should be punished against that. So that's where the social contract is giving us the origin and explanation to that. Then interpretation of the term social contract. According to the Black Law's definition, some of the names which you are consistently going to hear in this whole curriculum are the Black Laws, the Merriam-Webster, and then Thomas Hobbes. So these are few of the names which you consistently going through. Although this is specific topic, the social contract, we have the underlying explanations from Hobbes, the John, Mr. Jane, and Grotius are the main exponents for this theory. Okay, now we go back to the Black Law's definition, where they explain the express of implied agreement between citizens and their government. As I explained before, that the government and the citizens, that agreement which individually agreed to surrender their freedom in exchange of mutual protection. Basically, the main concern is that not the powerful one can misuse his power in terms of getting the I'm sorry, this cursor is, I'm trying to, well, I'm unfortunately I'm unable to highlight that. Well, yes, so the surrender certain freedom in exchange of mutual protection and agreement, forming the foundation of a political society. So that's how the society is developed, that for doing evil things, that injustice which has been done by any specific or a group of peoples, they should needs to get punished against that, to make them discipline or to adopt the things. Or else there are some certain authors which the name has been specified, they further elaborate that how to overcome to from such situations. Okay, as per the definition of the social contract by Merriam-Webster, an actual or a hypothetical agreement. So normally not every individual has an agreement with the government, so it's like, that's the reason they said that hypothetical agreement among the members of the organized society, or between a community and its rules, that defines and limits the rights and duties of each other. So association, exposition of the theory is that social contract theory is rightly associated with modern moral and political theories, and it gives the full exposition and defense by Thomas Hobbes. So Thomas Hobbes did a vital part in this theory, and he explained in-depth information about the product. The main exponent, as I explained earlier, are the Hobbes, John, and the names are specified here. These are the exponents of this theory. Okay, name of term social contract. Basically, this name has been taken from the books by Jean Jacques in 1762, who is the one who had discussed this concept in detail. Although this specific social contract theories are found in Greek and Roman philosophy as well as the canon law also has been elaborated the social contract in their theories. Okay, if we go about the history, it's just a small understanding which they take from the Plato in the Republic Book 2, where they give a small understanding where they said that they explain that to do an injustice by nature, good to suffer injustice, evil, but the evil is greater than the good. That's what I was explaining, that if you're doing good deeds, but if you had did something wrong, which is more superior than the bad thing, and so when man has both done, so like the person is doing good deeds but he had did something wrong also, suffered injustice and have experience of both, not being able to avoid the one and obtain the other. So it's not been possible. He did wrong and he's still expecting to have everything good in favor of him. So they think they had better agree among themselves to have which is ordained by the law in terms of the level in the law and just. Thus they affirm to be the origin and nature of justice. It is a main and compromise between the best of all. So as per the law, the best should have to be decided. Like if he's like did something wrong and if he is guilty, he's supposed to accept the punishment against that, which is to do injustice and not to be punished. That's what it's explained, that it's not going to be adopted that he do something wrong and he's not even expecting to have a punishment against to that. The worst of all, which to suffer injustice without the power of retaliation, and justice being at the middle point between two, is tolerated not as good but as the lesser evil, and honored by reason of the inability of man to do injustice. For no man who is worth to be called a man could ever be submit to such agreement. And that's what, like, it's been explaining the same thing, that it is not possible that if you do something wrong and then you're expecting that nothing bad has to be done, but yes, you do a retaliation against to that no, I don't want to accept that. That's what they are explaining here. In the 20th century, there is some moderate, like, development has been done to the same theory, where they also add specifically the, I really don't, I'm sorry that I'm trying, the cursor always get, yeah, okay. I'm sorry about that for the inconvenience. Here they're saying that in the 20th century, the development is like this. The feminist and race conscious philosophy has argued the social contract between at least incomplete picture of the moral and political lives. So here they had added some of the race consciousness and also the feminist area into the same theory. Okay, heading 9 here they are explaining that in the early Platonic dialogue, Socrates make a compelling agreement as to why he must stay in prison and accept the death penalty rather than, yes, that's where the concept came, is that this, yes, in the early, I'm sorry, yeah, in the early Platonic dialogue, this specific area is the one which we are discussing. Socrates. Socrates makes a compiling agreement. He make an agreement that why, if I have to go to the prison and accept the death sentence, why don't we escape to some other country? That's what he was trying to explain. He personifies the law of Athens and speaking in their voice explain that he has acquired an overwhelming obligation to obey the law because they have made his entire way of life and even fact that his expense possible. Then he is also explaining that his father and mother married there and therefore has been having children, including himself, having born there in the city through the law and required his father care of his education, Socrates' life, and may have which of that flourished in Athens and each of the that. So he was trying to explain कि अगर आपने कोई crime किया, why you have to go to the prison and accept the death sentence, you can expel from the city and go somewhere else. Importantly, however, this relationship between the citizen and the law of the city are not forced citizen. Once they have grown up and like once they grown up, और अगर उन्हें feel हो रहा है कि उस city की जो conducts है itself is not accepted, he can leave the country or with their property and them, and staying implies an agreement to obey the law and accept the punishment by the better. So he was trying to say कि अगर उसको उस country का law acceptable नहीं लग रहा है and facing that it's difficult for him to accept the law and the obligations from that country, he can leave the country with all his properties and to migrate to some other place. And having made an agreement that itself, Socrates asserts that he must keep this agreement that he had made and obey the law, in this case by staying and accepting the death penalty. मतलब कि अगर वो उसी कंट्री में रहता है और एक्सेप्ट करता है उस लॉ के जो उस कंट्री का लॉ है to doing anything injustice, then he has to accept that law and to accept the death penalty. Importantly, the contract described by Socrates is the implicit one. Why it is implicit? Because it is implied by his choice to stay in Athens even though he is free to leave. That's the core of this specific argument of Socrates. Under the Glaucan views, he says that the convenient result of the law and convenient the man make in order to avoid these extremes. Okay, being unable to, I will try to drop down my screen so at least you can read what is written there clearly. Being unable to commit injustice with impunity, as those who were the ring of God, Gyges would, and fearing become victims themselves, man decided it is their interest to submit themselves to the convention of justice. Socrates rejects this view, and most of the rest of the dialogue certain as showing the justice of earth have been its own sake, and that just man is the happy man, and that the man is just the happy man. So, for Socrates' point of view, justice has a value that greater exceed the prudential value that Glaucon assigned to it. It's just the further, debate and argument between Glaucon and the Socrates. Okay, the argument was keep running between Socrates and the other one, that Glaucon. Then these views, under considering those views, the Cato and the Republic might seem at glance inconsistent. What they found that inconsistent in the former dialogue, where Socrates uses a social contract type of an argument to show why it is just for him to remain in prison, whereas in the later he social contract, he himself rejects the social contract as the source of justice. These two things, what he had said, is basically reconcilable. As per the Republics, that ये जो दो issues उसने mean time रखे थे कि why if he is arguing that if he's supposed to be in the prison, on the other hand he's saying that rejecting social contracts as the source of justice, these issues are basically reconcilable as per the Republic. From Socrates' point of view, a just man is one who will, among other things, recognize his obligation to the state by obeying its law. So that's what he's saying, that he can recognize his obligation by obeying the law, and he don't have to face such issues. So that means that he should have to understand and respect the state law. The state is the morally and politically most fundamental entity, and such deserves the highest elegance and the deepest respect. So that's where you have to respect the law and the elegance to it. Just man knows that this, and that's what they are trying to explain, that it has to be act accordingly. Whereas justice, however, is more than simply obeying law in exchange of other obeying them as well. Justice is the state of a well-regulated soul. Basically, they are trying to say that justice is something, it's one of the well-regulated state of the soul of the well-regulated justice is basically considered as the soul to the state. So the man just necessarily be happy man. So justice is more than simply reciprocal obedience to the law, as Glaucon suggests, but it does not the less. Basically, as per the Glaucon, it includes the obedience to the state, the law that sustain it. So that's where basically the issue happens. So in the end, although Plato is perhaps the first philosopher to offer representation to the argument at the heart of social contract theory, Socrates ultimately reject the idea that the social contract is the origin of the. Basically, Socrates till the end has this issue that he's saying it's not basically the original source of justice. The social contract has never been the source of justice. Characteristics of social contract: free and independent individual. According to this theory, the people of a particular territory means जिस भी territory में आप हैं or any state of country should be free and independent. आप खुद को free and independent feel करें, but it doesn't mean that you take the advantage of that and do unjustifiable acts which can make you into a position where state law and impositions can put you into a punishment zone. Okay, then there is a B point, which is peace and security, and then entering into the agreement and obeying the government. It's basically the highlights, which, if you remember these headings, you can easily understand what you have to put into this area. People are living in the particular territory in the state or the nature felt the necessary peace and security. That's where the subject heading itself is declaring. Then entering into the agreement, therefore entered into the general agreement to form themselves in the community. अगर आप उस community का हिस्सा हैं तो आप automatically consider yourself that you are general agreement के adoptions के इस phase के अंदर already automatically है. Obeying the government, the people were to be obey the government and protection of their natural rights. It's very obvious when you are living into the country, you must have to obey the law and the rules which is being implicitly adopted and applied into the country. Okay, modern social contract theory. As per the Thomas Hobbes, he is also considered as one of the modern concept theory to this. Historical background of Mr. Hobbes is that his era is from 1588 to 1679, lived during the most crucial period. Basically, the period why it's called as crucial is that modern England history. It is stating that जो king tha, he was considered as the whole sole person, and he's assigned by the god, and he has the right to make all the laws and regulations, and he's the one who take decisions. Where there was a theory comes up that he has the traditional authority of the monarch, and the parliament जो है वो decide हो वो decisions ले, ना कि the king has whole and sole all the power to make any decision. Most ability to the Oliver Cromwell, who demanded more power of the democracy institute of parliament. That's what they are explaining in this about the history. Compromise between two factors. Hobbes represent a compromise between two factors. Just let me tell them that. Okay, on one hand, he rejects the theory of divine right of the king. See, that's what they are explaining. Divine rights of the king, which is most eloquently expressed by Robert Flamer, in which, okay, in this is basically the book where he explained the nature power of the kings, although it would be left to John Locke to refute Flamer directly. Okay, now this is another views by the Flamer view. A king authority has invested him, perceivable her by God. That's what they're saying, that uski jo authorities hai, it has been given by the God, that such authority was absolute, and therefore that the basis of the political obligation lay in the obligation of the god of absolute. It's like their logic is that if the king is giving some assign, that's been assigned by the god. That's what they are trying to explain in this. It's basically subheadings. Normally sometimes in the exam you will hear a question asking you to elaborate modern social contract theory. So if the question only comes from here, you don't have to give all the previous background, and you can jump up your discussion from here on. So on the other hand, जो बता दिया कि भाई पावर दोनों के पास होनी चाहिए between parliament and the king. Observers of the Hobbes is observation क्या थी कि जी Hobbes observed that the pre-political life of the man was more into solitary, poor, nasty, brutish. तो उसका मानना ये था कि before pre-political जो lifestyle था लोगों का वो काफी diminished था, and he appreciate that kings and their kingdom should have to be there, but there should be some parliament, some assemblies who can participate and make the decisions for the people's commonwealth. And then John Locke in 1632 to 1704, with society becoming more complex, the want to settle known as indifferent judge, and power to back and support a sense of other such factors, and reunifications of state and make an agreed by the primitive man. He gave his own opinion that indifferent judge and power to be back to be given, and it gives a sense to them. To be very honest, for me, his discussion doesn't give me much of the logic. Then Jain also said on that, however, feel that the state of nature was one of the pastoral happiness, but its uninterrupted maintenance necessities the social contract. By the contract, he lost natural liberty but gained civil liberty instead. So he gave a very good thought of it, that by interpreted maintenance required थी जो कि necessary थी to the social contract. This contract, he lost natural liberty, the reason of that, which brings to a condition where the natural contract lost its natural liberty but gains civil rights. So the civil rights come up instead of the natural liberty to the social contract. And Kant observed that the act of which a people is representing as continuing itself into a state in terms of the original contract. So they have, everyone has given their own opinions. It's self-explanatory. I don't have to further dig into it. More aspect social contract theories. John Rawls, that's what it was discussed in the beginning. In 1972, the publication of the John Rawls, extremely influential, A Theory of Justice, brought moral and political philosophy. Uh, that's where that moral and the political philosophy back from what had been a long history of the philosophy consideration जो कि lack हो रही थी वो come back again हुई थी by John Rawls in 1972, where he discussed back again the same things. Okay, Rawls' theory was basically relies on Kantian understanding of a person and their capacities. Rawls, as for the Kant person, I remember they are saying is that the particular moral capacity of the judging principle from an impartial standpoint. Okay, in the theory, what he was trying to say is that it is important to note that his view defining in the theory of justice, he undergoes substantial revision by Rawls, and that he described in later views of the political liberalism. Okay. David Guether, in 1986, in his book Moral by Agreement, David Guether set out the new Hobbesian. It's basically from Thomas Hobbes. He further, set out to renew the Hobbesian moral and political philosophy. In the book, he makes a strong argument that Hobbes was right. He was understanding both political and morality as founded upon an agreement between exclusive and self-interest yet rational person. He improves upon Hobbes' agreement, however, he is showing that he can establish morality without the external enforcement mechanism of the sovereign. So एक्सटर्नल enforcement of mechanism के ऊपर इनका emphasize था कि उनकी basis के ऊपर जो है you can establish morality without that. Okay, contemporary critics of social contract theory. Feminist argument, which was in the beginning, had started that for the most part feminists resist any simple or universal definition. In general, though feminists takes women experience seriously, so इसमें यही कहा गया था कि जो women's के experience है, you should have to consider that also, give the priority to that also as the impact these theories and practicals of the woman's life. So basically to add on to them, gives the pervasive influence of the contract theory on social, political, and moral philosophy. Well, Carol Patzman's argument was basically on the sexual contract, the nature of the liberal individuals arguing from a race conscious agreement. Carol Smiles in 1997 book, the Carol the racial the racial contract is a critic only on the history of Western political thought, institutions and practice, but more especially for the history of the social contract theory. It is inspired by the carols that the sexual contract and seeks to show that non-whites have a similar relationship to the social contract as do women. So basically, again, the same concept they are saying is that it's not only individually specifying only to the man, but also to the woman. They call into the question that suppose the universality of the liberal individual who is the agent of the contract theory. So it is basically giving more liberalism to any individual to consider and respect the social contract. Criticism basically from the different jurists are there where they are explaining that the theory attributes to the primitive man Okay, according to Austin, the theory is historically false. Austin was always very precisely focusing on the areas, and he has many regrets to different authors' explanations. And he's also saying here is that the theory attributes to primitive man. Oh, okay. He's saying that the historical concept of this theory was false, and there is no proof of such original agreement. So basically, we are keep discussing about the agreement. What he was saying is that there is no physical agreement between any two parties. So he runs in a different world. According to Sermain, observes that the theories as violent anachronism. And according to Professor Garner, he completely rejects that on the grounds of philosophy and reason that this theory is completely, he rejected this. Overall, the conclusion is that Virginia has argued, he also has an argument on this, that contemporary Western society is in the grip of contractual thinking. So as per him, that Western society is quietly gripped into the contractual thinking. Contractual model have some to inform a vast variety of relationship and interaction between persons, from students and their teachers, from authors and their readers. It's just to explain and understand that contractual models are way vast. It's between the contract is also between the teachers to the students to share them the knowledge, the authors to the readers, that what author is writing, the reader should easily understand what he's trying to explain. Give this, it would be difficult to overestimate the fact that social contract theory, that both within philosophy and for the wider culture, social contract theory is undoubtedly with us the one foreseeable future. But so too are the critics of such theory, which will continue to compel our thinking and rethinking the nature of both ourselves and our relation with one another. In short, the conclusion what they explain is that वेस्टर्न कल्चर जो कि काफ़ी पहले से इन चीज़ों को कॉन्ट्रेक्चुअल थिंकिंग के माइंडसेट के साथ था, बट दे आर ट्राइंग टू एक्सप्लेन कि कॉन्ट्रैक्ट इज नॉट बिटवीन ओनली जस्ट सेइंग दैट गवर्नमेंट and the citizen, but they're trying to say is that even if a teacher is trying to preach the lesson to the children, she also has a contract in terms of not even having a signing physical contract, but understanding that she has to deliver the right information or the knowledge to the students. The author who is writing a book should have to experience and share the right information the reader can easily understand. This all gives us the understanding that yes, the contract is just a philosophical term, but it has widely adopted and evolved in the culture. Social contract theory is undoubtedly is foreseeable future. We can always see, and we can even in future see. We just need to rethink and think that what and how is the relation of us with one another. That's all is the explanation for now. I hope things are a bit understandable. I go through with all these notes. This PDF has also been linked to the page, and if you have any doubt, you can go through with it and you can write down the comments to further elaborate on those things. It's basically kind of working which I'm trying to do. Okay, both parties should understand that by explaining things, it's always give you more ideas and comfort, because it's just the initial videos I'm making that I'm sometimes losing connections, and sometimes I'm having problem with voice connectivity. So it's just error rectification process, and I hope gradually things will get more interesting and you will get more involved into the topics while explaining to each other. Thank you for watching, and I will be keep posting some more topics in later after, and I hope you go through with it and you can share your ideas, your views down below in the link or in the comment section. You can share some more interesting areas where we can get more detailed information to the social contract theory. I also feel that we need further more to look into it, but I think so even if this of the information you have it, and if you get the idea by these authors, it can help us a lot to sufficient enough to this is the sufficient enough knowledge which can help us to complete our topic to the specific question if it's come up. And I feel that this is something not just fully, but some part of it must be triggered and tested in the exam. Thank you for watching, and see you again. Kindly like and subscribe, and thank you so much.